Convene the meeting. I'll convene the meeting at 2:07. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate your time and folks on the phone. I hope you can hear us on Zoom. First item was introductions and roll call. JJ, can you do voice roll call?
Yeah, Marsha Porter Norton.
I am here.
Kevin Hall.
Here.
Gilda Yazzie. Eva Henson.
Present.
Kathleen Sickles.
She is here.
Brenna Moreland.
Here. Present.
Mark Garcia.
Here.
Clark Craig.
Present.
And Patrick Vaughn.
Here. So we do have a quorum. And if Gilda shows up during the meeting, just note the time she arrived. If not, for some reason, we'll just consider her absence excused.
Sounds good.
The next item is public comment. And since we have public both in the room and on Zoom, I'll do the folks that are in the room first. And as a reminder, there's a sign-in sheet that I'd like you to sign in if you're going to speak. And for those on Zoom, we'll just cover like you saying who you are. So is anybody in the audience here wanting to speak today?
Hey everybody, my name is Lori Roberts. I'm always happy to address you all. I'm happy to see Jenn Lopez here today. I have hoped for this group to have more subject area expertise. Last month, it was a little awkward when Eva started talking about low income housing tax credits, and we could all wish for Eva to not have to be the top of our expertise and for Eva to have support to do the most that she can. One of the things I've spoken up for here is to pursue or keep looking at the public housing developer model that Jenn had recommended to us in one of her many reports for our area. I know that we have been looking at the public-private partnership model. So I drove by the Best Western this morning. We bought that place in, I think, October, maybe November, and then right away there was a water leak, and it's sitting, there was nobody there today. And that is the downside. I've heard in this meeting, even though this is a quasi-governmental group, I've heard in here talks about the efficiency of the private market, which I kind of think, why is that point being made in this particular setting? But the flip side of that is the lack of accountability. And it's very frustrating, I'm sure, for everybody that's been involved on the public side of this Best Western, that it's happening. And I'm sure that people are very deep in the details, but my point is that it would be beneficial to the public with finding that there be more accountability. And again, I'm trying to talk about that public housing developer model that Jenn has guided us toward. I remember being in a meeting with this group. We were at the water treatment facility, and Mike Seacrest from the county was talking about what can we do in-house here? We have competence in-house, and he was talking about that public housing developer model. So I did just want to point out some of the things that were in the Tierra Contenta, I think it was, in Santa Fe that Jenn was pointing us to. We're getting the possibility of infrastructure fundings, which would really get us going in that direction. Thanks for listening.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public in the room? How about online? No one? Okay. Well, thank you for everybody for a public comment. The next item is the approval of the agenda. I think Eva wants to make a friendly motion.
Yes, I would like to make the motion. I wanted to suggest under decision items number 3, the discussion around the possible contribution for Rachel Taylor Soggy at Habitat. I do have a conflict this afternoon that I need to pick up my kids for at 3 o'clock and want to be engaged and committed for our meeting and be most efficient. So I just wanted to suggest maybe depending on where we're at with presentations and other components that we do need to make decisions on, if I could move that up possibly to number 1 instead of number 3 under decision items, just so I could speak to that. And if we wanted to do any kind of city update for City of Durango somewhere further up on the agenda, I would be happy to provide just a quick update around some of the city activities.
Good. Great. So is that a motion?
Sort of, yes. I guess I should have been more clear. If I could move the City of Durango update possibly, gosh, I guess it's all alliance updates under G.
Okay.
Could I be
First item
number,
under G.
would be great.
Sure.
And then I'd also like to move the Rachel Keeler Soggy Memorial Contribution as well up under decision items for number 1.
So we got a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item is E, consent agenda, consisting of the May 2023 minutes. We have a motion to approve. Is
I so move. Marcia Porter Norton.
there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion, edits, questions? Not. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I wasn't there, so hold on.
Okay, so abstain.
Well, this is really not what I said, though. I know I'm jumping in, but.
Well, it's reflected.
Minutes from last time.
It's what we have as the minutes, so that, it's been approved by the board. Thank you. The next item, presentation and engagement with non-RHA entities. Jenn Lopez of LIHTC.
How long would you like me to budget? Are you gonna keep it to 15? 15 for. I do come fast, Sarah.
Jenn, what's everybody's time limit today? Is that
Yeah.
hard stop at 4?
Yeah,
Okay. You understand that?
yeah, that's why I asked.
Okay.
Why don't we, yeah, and I wanted help keeping track of time. So I have quite a few slides. I'm gonna focus on about 8. My goal in my 8 slides is for you all to know that tax credits are really complex. They're a powerful tool and a completely imperfect one. That's what I want to leave you with. I also think you can play a really powerful role as a regional entity because, and so I'm just getting to the punchline, then I can go and we don't even have to do the slides. You know, the state agency, they're oversubscribed 4-to-1. Again, I'll talk about what they are in a minute, but there's so much demand for affordable housing across the state. This is such a limited resource for housing that I think I said it in the Mike's plan or the regional investment plan. And I know I've said it to RHA before, but coordinating those asks is critical. And I don't know that you have any competing tax credit applications in the pipeline now, but it's just something you could do every year as an entity. You could send out a note or advertise that you're looking to see if there's any tax credit projects coming in. And because you have a lot of power, because it's so oversubscribed, CHAF is going to look at the local communities and say, which one do you want, honestly? And so we can get ahead of all that drama. We can save Eva tons of time. We can see, you know what I mean? So that's the kind of the punchline here. And if you want me to come back at a different time, or you end up going down and you want to do more around this strategy, we can do that on a different day. Does that sound right, Sarah? Okay, you're in charge. You let me know. Okay. All right. I'm going to skip through a lot of you all know who I am. I usually do a little bit about development before I do tax credits. But I am going to say this, that there's lots of housing. Every community should be providing housing across the continuum, which means you're doing different types of housing. So for people experiencing homelessness, we do certain types of housing. We do for chronically homeless. Tax credits fits into what we call the multifamily rental bucket. And what it, right, so it provides affordable housing, rental band, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Then you've got single family home ownership, and then you've got workforce rentals, right? And these numbers keep changing, right? And they keep getting higher and higher because everything is so difficult right now. And in fact, before I go on, I just do this, right? Oh, because I'm on the screen.
I know you're sure.
I'm good, okay. I do want to talk about the bus. So our team has been working with that project for a long time. This is the hardest time to build. Construction costs have been increasing 20%, 30% a year. Interest rates have been increasing. So there's not one tax credit project. We're working on about 150 million right now in 2 states. I don't have one project right now that's not stalled. So that's part of the process, Lori, is we run out of money. So we're trying to close that in August. We're trying to put together the last pieces of financing there. Tax credits are not fast at all. Like the fastest I think you can get an allocation and build a building is maybe 2 years, but it's usually 3 to 5 years to do this. So it's about the darn market. And it's just a hard time to be in the market right now. Okay, what did I?
Lost.
Oh, here, I just did this right. Oh. I was doing pretty good.
It was.
Sorry.
Still seeing it on my Zoom.
Yeah, I think you are.
Okay, dude,
Just freeze.
Okay.
I'm just gonna park myself up here.
This is a live, okay, housing credits. I did borrow some of the slides from Chafa. Again, Colorado Housing Finance Authority is the allocator of low-income housing tax credits. I like pictures and I like simplicity a lot. So when our market rate development partners go out and build apartment buildings, right? What do? They have a little bit of equity, but mostly they borrow money, right? They borrow money or they get equity investments. And depending on the cost of that money to borrow, it will dictate plus market what they can charge for rent. They go into the deal because they're going to make money over time collecting rent, right? Tax credits are backwards, they're opposite. And that's why sometimes it's hard for people to get their head around it. So it's opposite. So with tax credits, so this program was created in 1986 under the Reagan administration. The purpose of the low-income housing tax credit program was to find a way to get private investors and private developers into affordable housing because we wanted to change the way it looked and felt. We wanted to do a whole lot more. And so prior to the tax credit program, most of our federal housing policy focused on public housing, Section 8 vouchers. You know, these programs are fine, but they were very niche and they only served a very small number of folks. And a lot of them didn't look great because again, they were underfunded and they weren't maintained. So this was to try to flip all that upside down. So in a tax credit project, Best Western, we were going to have less debt and the gap is going to be filled because we have tax credit equity. So we were awarded tax credits. I'm going to try not to get too into a rabbit hole because it's complicated, but because that deals with 4%. And I'll talk about the difference between the two. But it's a competitive process. We got the credits, we sold them to an investor. That translates into a portion of filling this gap. And I'm going to show you a slide in a minute how much of that gap it fills.
Jen, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, we have some stuff going on that I needed to respond to a text, so I totally apologize if you already said that. Who gives the tax credit? It's kind of like a dollar bill. How does a dollar bill get back?
Yeah.
Are you going to talk about that?
Look at you just queued me up.
Okay, thank you.
So it's a treasury program.
Oh,
This is
okay.
another point.
That's what I'm.
So in housing, right, some of the programs are HUD, some are treasury, some are USDA. This is a treasury program. So over here would be the federal government. They allocate credits to the state. Each state has a designated agency. Our agency is Chafa. Every year Chafa runs a competitive process for these credits. They outline what the priorities are, which is really important, right? So for many years when I was with Hickenlooper, the priority was homelessness. Now the priority is energy. So it changes. And so as the development community and as communities wanting credits, we pay attention to what the priorities are. The document, it's got a horrible acronym. It's called the Qualified Allocation Plan. We call it the QAP. Some people call it the QAP. Every state has one. And that is a public process that happens summer to fall every year. Chafa will have listening sessions. We can have Chris come back and make sure that he gives you the dates, but it really, really is important. The one thing we haven't had to advocate for in Colorado, and I'm so proud of this, is Chafa does a great job of spreading them around. So Drake has had, I don't know, 6, 7 projects in the last 15 years. That's a lot. So I would say they're really good at allocating and they're a great partner. So so we all apply, right? So I'm applying in August for $70 million in another project. 4 to 1, right? We come in here, hopefully we get selected. Once we get that allocation of credit, we start getting bids from investors. So it's Wells Fargo, Bank of America, lots of financial institutions. Why do they want to buy the credits? A couple of reasons. If they're a bank, they have a requirement called CRA. Oh my God, I'm gonna blank on what that is.
Community Reinvestment Act.
Thank you. Oh my
I don't
goodness.
know why you.
Love this. CRA, so anyway, so they get credit, if they invest, they get credit towards their CRA rankings, and they get reviewed every year by federal agencies. They also want to do it because it's a really good return on investment. So they put money in this project, they get to take the losses on this project for many, many years, and it's a double-digit return. So they're avoiding tax payments. Sound good? I mean, it's really good for them. It's mostly good for us. It's not a very efficient program. So they sell the credits to the investor, and then they get the tax liability taken off.
Hey, Jen.
Yes.
Has the state ever considered issuing state tax credits?
We have them.
We did?
We do.
Okay.
We're one of the few, and so I'll talk about that in just a second. So, so why does this program continue to have bipartisan support against a federal program? We haven't had a big increase in a while, but we've had some fixes to the program. But it works because private sector makes money doing the units. Communities receive those units, right? So everybody's kind of getting their needs met. The developer agrees to long-term affordability because the way the developer gets paid, and I missed this part, when the allocation comes in and we close the building, we build the building, throughout that process, the investor is going to pay like success fees throughout. So affordable housing developer gets paid within the first 2 years of building the building. So it's the opposite. We're going to incentivize you, build this building, take the risk, operate it for us, we'll pay up front. Doesn't mean they don't make money on some other stuff, but it's minor because the building is not set up to generate a lot of cash. And then it also works because private sector assumes the risk. These super risky. Every deal I'm working on is dying right now. So I've decided I'm not going to be a developer after this year, and I'm not being funny. It's really hard. So having the private sector where they have some skills and they have experience, it's a good win for the community. Competitiveness will always generate better outcomes. So, we go in the first year. So I'll give you an example of the project that we didn't win last year in Aurora. This year, we're able to go in and do more energy efficient. We're going to go solar panel this year. We're adding services. We're doing all kinds of cool stuff that we wouldn't have done last year if we'd been awarded. Again, so.
Jen, you also said 4 to 1, meaning there's 4 applications for every 1 awarded. Okay.
Thank you, Pat. How am I doing on time, sir?
Good.
All right. Here's a few of the players. Again, we said CHAPTA allocates those credits. We have developers. There's for-profits, there's nonprofits, there's housing authorities. There's pros and cons to each one of those players in this space. The investors, again, I added sponsor because that's what you all could be. You could be a sponsor. A sponsor is an entity that says, I want to see something happen. I'm going to queue up a site. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. City of Durango, you're the sponsor of Best Western. When I was at RHA, we sponsored Median back in the day. So I think it's a really powerful role that RHA can consider playing in the future. And then lender, multiple lenders. You'll have construction lender, you'll have perm lender. There's like 16 people on the team when you go to close one of these. There's attorneys, right? It's a very, very complex program, but we have less than like 1% default on the program. So again, it's very expensive, but it delivers units to a community for 30 years. I mean, some communities have longer affordability periods, but you have to have a plan to be able to maintain those units. This is one of my favorite slides because it's just really easy to see, right? So I'm going to go build the gauge. Just going to borrow the money. I have a little bit of equity. My rents are going to be higher because I have to pay off my debt. We have 4%. So there's a 9 and a 4, and this is for another day. But the way to think about it is the 9% generates more money, the 4% generates less. The 9% is very competitive. The 4% is kind of competitive. So different tools, they work not different tools, same tool, they work slightly differently. 4% are a lot more complicated. So again, this is another reason Best Western's taking a while. It's a lot more complicated because we have private activity bond, which is cheaper debt that's capped at the state level. So again, we've got all these federal capped resources we're competing for. And by the way, yay, City of Durango, direct allocation of PAV now. Plata County gets PAV. bank them as long as you can, because it takes a lot of the PAB to make the leverage work in these deals. The reason we haven't used private activity bonds and 4% before is because these deals are huge. So $1 million here and $1 million there, like Best Western's like 10 million, right? They're much larger amounts of money. So we won't be doing the 4% often. It's kind of a special deal. Soft funds is just, cheap money. And then down here we have the 4% and then the state. So these numbers can change. Like I have it at 30%. It might be closer to 40 or 50. It depends on the pricing of the tax credit. In August every year, Pat, they run this competition where the state says, we're going to give 4 and state together because we know some deals need more equity. So grateful because it leverages so many more units in Colorado. So we lobby at the state every year to keep this program. Not every state has it. And then the 9%, the Willy Wonka's golden ticket, it's because you get so much equity. So I've had deals where it's 60%, 70, 75, but it's the majority of your building is paid for by that investor. So I just have one more point.
I might ask a question.
Yeah.
Just because until coming to the city of Durango, I had not really navigated private activity bonds because in Summit County, it was just the county that was eligible because of the population base. So I've been learning a lot. And trying to be educated and informed. So I'm getting inquiries already from other municipalities wanting our private activity bonds this year. We have until September 15th to submit to CHAPA if we want to carry forward our funds. And you can do that for up to 3 years. So the county could be in the same boat.
Okay.
You need to do it by resolution. So I kind of have it calendared for myself in August to just tickler reminder about, I need to make sure I take action on this, but you don't have to take action before that. You can carry those forward. You could allocate to a project if you have it, but more than likely we'll be carrying forward until we maybe have opportunities here locally. So I didn't know how to reach out to like Douglas County and some other hearings have been asking me. I've asked details about their project. It's about 200 units. They need, I don't know, they were telling me about $60 million. So I don't know how to gauge, do we appropriate them to CHAFA? What would be the harm in allocating them to another municipality directly, other than they have to go into the kitty of the other competitiveness and we could just walk me through that, because I don't understand.
And I'd love to come back and help with the policy, because I think we could come up with something that works for everybody. So again, debate first.
That's what I figured.
Your staff informally reaches out to me or Sarah and other people every year, but if we had it on the calendar, March 1 every year, you sent and said, hey, are there any projects in the hoppers, right? How I would think about it, so Mercy Housing reached out to me because I was talking to them about preserving the portfolio down here, and they said, we're not quite ready yet. And then they said, hey, but can we have the PAB from the city of Durango? And I went, oh God, what a nightmare. The reason this is a nightmare is if you say yes to this, you're going to get it all the time. So here's what I would recommend. I mean, maybe Mercy's a one-off because you've got a relationship with them. But in general, what we do is we bank it, try to use it locally. If we can't, we give it to CHAPA. Why do we give it to CHAPA? Because CHAPA's really good at allocating stuff. Then you don't have to underwrite other people's deals. And again, they'll start calling and they'll never stop if they hear that we're losing their PABs.
That's what I figured, and that's good advice. And I wanted to make sure that
Yeah,
the county
thank you.
and us were aligned. And so I was going to make sure that either Kevin or Chuck were aware of it. So
Yeah.
that we don't decide on taking action on those before the deadline of September 15th.
Yeah, we've already
because
started
your
talking about it.
meetings may fall differently than Durango's. I don't know when are yours
Yeah.
the first and third, or are you guys alternating?
We've already started talking and we have 2 projects that are being considered.
Okay.
So and we're just trying to learn more about it and understand from the staff, because, and one of them is the Best Western.
Okay.
And then one of them is Mr. Albrecht. Am I saying your name correctly?
Charles Albert.
Yeah, and Brad. So both of them are being considered.
I don't know how you use it for sale. Is that what they're saying?
We just have to get all the staff work done on it. Yeah. Like what does it apply to? Is it only
Is only
rentals?
I've never seen it for rental. This is, now we're gonna get over my pay raise real fast, but we use it all the time for rental housing. The only time I've seen it for sale is when you give it to CHAFA and CHAFA uses it statewide to create mortgage assistance. Yeah.
So not directly for a for sale project.
No, but I think what you're all teasing at, which we should do later this summer, is bonds, right? So there are communities that do their own bonding and then they use that bond money for whatever they want to do it for. And I think that's where you're trying to go. And we should add that to somebody coming and talking like that. Just two other things I want to share, and then again, I'll come back in the future if we want to go deeper, but there's a ton, because it's so competitive, you got to have readiness to proceed on, we know how competitive state funds are, but this is like the gold standard. So site control zoning, your applicant is really important. Back in the early days, I used to get calls from out-of-state developers and I didn't know how to vet them, right? I do now. So if that starts to happen here again, we can put together a matrix and help you all vet. Because that gets really tough when you get somebody out of state, you don't know. Zoning, got to be ready to proceed. We know this. Zoning has gotten more and more complicated in every single community. And so they will ask you, they'll ask for a letter from the local government saying, yep, you're ready to go. And then it's got to be feasible. And there's lots of rules to like cash flow, developer repayment, so you just go in there and they tell you what you can do and you back into your pro forma based on cost. Y'all who hang out with me a lot know I love market studies, but I really do. The markets are crazy. You got to have a market study. Not every state does this, but Brad, I think about back in the day, Brad Elder wanted to do a deal with Bayfield and it was too small. I thought it would have been awesome. You usually have to have a larger community to do them, but let's stay connected on this because it's changing. Your markets are changing. Your populations are changing. And it costs a lot of money to do an application. It can be anywhere from 30 to 50,000. Finally, I would just say, you've got a lot of projects. I think you could, if I were setting goals for you, you'd be trying to get an application in every other year. And you'd probably get awarded every third. And that's kind of what we've been doing since the Lumion projects. We had a little bit of a gap. But again, this would not be possible without city, county support. It's huge, huge, huge. Also fair share. Even this is what we did in the beginning when fair share in the market, we used a lot of land to build the housing and it worked then. It's, depends on what your market's doing. The last thing I'll say is your role, whether you're local government, RHA in tax credits is providing land or gap funding, coordinating underwriting, right? So again, I think Eva, you were on those calls where we're trying to figure out, do they need more money from TOH or from the city? Where do we fill? This is my favorite thing. If you don't want to respond, put out an RFQ every year. Like if there's not a pipeline, you say, hey, we want to see if there's anybody out there. Here's what we would offer, and it'll save you so much time. Yeah, so this is just a little bit of protocol that could be put in place.
Interesting.
So Jen, question, no, we have a relatively long agenda. Can you provide this to Sarah and she can distribute it to the folks?
Absolutely, and there's about 20 slides you didn't see that might make your head spin. So again,
that way you can have some time
we can figure it
to
out.
fall on it and maybe put Jen's email address so we can direct questions to her directly, if you don't mind.
But always happy to help.
Okay.
And it's not a huge lift. So thank you. Good to see everybody.
Thank you, Jen. Appreciate it.
Do Bayfield and Ignacio have it, or is it just the city and county? It has
Yeah, it's too small.
population. Okay,
Yeah.
it's population based. Okay.
Right now, it's too small. Yeah.
20,000
Oh, okay.
is the delta to start it.
Ready to move on? Great. So the next is the Pine River Commons report. Brad.
Hi. Brad, or would you like me to stand up here?
Sure.
So, first of all, I'd like to start by thanking the RHA and the members of the RHA for a letter of support that you gave to Pine River Commons. I'd like to mention that Charlie Albert is, I think,
Yep. He stepped away from, it looks like he stepped away, but he's on.
yeah, he stepped away. But Charlie is
Go on, that's fine.
he's a developer and a philanthropist and a good friend of mine. He was hurt in an accident last fall in a mountain bike accident. And so it kind of caught up with him a little bit. And that's when I jumped in to help him with Pine River Commons. And it's a great project. It's 66 townhomes on 2 lots. And then there are 3 commercial lots in the town of Bayfield. And I'd also like to thank the town of Bayfield. They've been great to work with. They've been very efficient in the planning process, and it's been great working with them. We are annexed into the town of Bayfield now, and the process is moving along quickly. We have a goal of 66 deed restricted townhomes for workforce housing. And that's been Charlie's goal all along. At some point, we started talking about grants for the project because we were headed down the deed restricted lane anyway. And we got a lot of great help from Jenn, who stepped out, and the Economic Alliance with Sarah and Mike. So we really are excited about the grant process and moving forward with some grants. We were selected for the Catalyst Fund grant, and that will enable us to engage with a firm that Mary Coddington owns, and she will be going after grants with Jenn helping with some technical support. So we really appreciate it. We're novices at writing grants and doing grants. It's been an eye opener for me. We got in touch with Shirley Diaz, who is excellent as well. She's very helpful, but these grants are, they're a pretty big deal, and a very interesting learning process on our part. We really are excited about the Bayfield community. We're excited about an October start date. Our plans are at about 89% right now. I have a set if any of you would like to look at them, a hard copy set. But the plans are ready to go. We have a lot of heavy lift as far as starting the project, the infrastructure. And I don't know if I need to mention any of that now, but if you ever want to know, okay, if you ever want to know why affordable housing isn't affordable, please talk to me and I can let you know. It's tough conversation when, and Pat and I talked about this, there are no real easy lots anymore. There's no real easy property anymore. And I don't, there ever was easy property, but easier property maybe is just really hard to find. So we're excited about getting started. We have, like I said, the October 1st date. We are in the process of searching for grants, and that will, we're looking for some help with infrastructure and then also construction grants. We are building some homes in Bayfield already. So we have a good feel for what our costs are, but we're still we're gonna need some help to keep the price of these units at a good spot for workforce housing. Our goal with grants is under 350,000. Our reality, if we don't get any help with grants, it's probably going to be more in the 380,000, 375, 380,000. And we would really like to even come in a little under 340,000. Charlie's goal is to really be as low as we possibly can. And that's a great, I think that's a great thing for the community. Charlie just finished a project, well, several projects. The MOB next to Home Depot out there, he maintains it's the best looking building in Durango now. So I would agree that it's a good looking building. So he and myself included, having been in business for almost 40 years, knows how important workforce is. And we are getting to a point where it's really hard to find people that can afford to live in our community, who can live here and work here. It's tough. I've had a lot more occasion to go to New Mexico. If you ever want to know how many people live in New Mexico and work in Durango, just take a drive at about 7:15 in the morning to Aztec or Farmington, and that'll let you know. Go to the Farmington Hill light at 7:45 and see how many New Mexico plates are turning into Durango. It'll give you an idea of how tough the conversation is right now. So we're super excited. We're super excited for the team. That is from Bayfield Planning to our grant team to Jay. Thank you. And the Alliance. You guys have been phenomenal and we really appreciate it. It'd be really hard to imagine getting traction on a project like this without a lot of team members. So thank you all. And I don't know if Charlie wanted to say anything. Charlie, do you want to say anything? Uh-oh, he disappeared. There he is. This is
Yeah.
Charlie.
Okay.
Yeah, hi, hello. No, I think Brad covered all that pretty well. We just are we'd like to get below the 100 AMI if we can for sales price, and but we can only do that with some grant help. So we're hoping for some grant help on that. Thanks.
Charlie.
Awesome. Thank you. Be happy to answer any questions that you have on the project.
Before we do that, can you just give a brief description of where this project's located so people can understand?
Yes, sorry. So the project lies on the east side of Bayfield at the very last intersection before you leave town. There's a new light slated there. It's the old Haga property. We purchased that a year ago, little over a year ago. Just as you're leaving town, south side of the road across from the elderly housing project. It's a great location for housing. It's central to everything. Of course, Bayfield is very user friendly. It's like a lot of things are centered right there. So I think that's another attractive thing about it. Yeah, you can bring it up right there. It's highlighted.
There you go.
Oh, wait, so it's on the south side of the highway.
South side of the highway. Yeah,
Okay.
right there.
It's over by Bayfield Gardens.
Yeah, okay, all right. Where's the gas station?
Right there.
Right there. Okay. Oh, I get it. Okay, all right. I thought it was.
Any
I have
other?
a question.
Sure.
Oh, go ahead. Did I interrupt you?
Go ahead.
How many bedrooms did you say?
So we are going to do a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom, and most will be at this time. It looks like almost every unit will be 2.5 baths.
Okay. And then is your project contingent on that stoplight going in?
No.
Oh, that's
So
good.
the only thing that is held up by the light going in is the commercial property, and we're very interested in that light and seeing that go. The town of Bayfield is really heading that up and doing a stellar job. Nicole could give you more details on where that's all at, but we would really like to see that go in. We are doing some improvements to Bayfield Parkway just to make it a little bit more user-friendly and pedestrian-friendly.
Great. I just want to thank you. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that, you know, you're stepping forward and doing it, and I just appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Well, just stepping forward and creating, I mean, I think Brad and Charlie have been, you know, accountable in their process, and I think it's been a really good coordination project. So I appreciate
Thank you.
that piece of it. Yeah.
And thanks to the town of Bayfield and your staff, they've been phenomenal to work with. So thank you. Any other questions? Thank you all.
Thank you.
So Eva, you're up.
Sure. Okay, so I wanted to discuss with the board a possible contribution to La Plata Habitat for Humanity in honor of Rachel Taylor Sagi. As we all know, she suddenly passed away 2 months ago. And so we've been kind of waiting to see where there might be an opportunity to pay tribute to all of the things that she did in our community, not only as an advocate for housing, but the good things that she did to really channel and get housing built. And so they posted some information on On the Habitat website, there are two opportunities for contribution. One can be directed to Habitat for Humanity of LaPlata County or directly to the church that she was a part of at the Summer Church in Durango. And so just wanted to open that up for discussion. If there's someone that might want to suggest a dollar amount, I don't know if we've ever done that in the past before, if other municipalities have donated something like this. To suggest something.
Well, she's done a lot.
She was 11 years as an executive director.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what that amount would, I don't even know what that amount would look like.
Are you saying that we would all individually as governments pay in or pay it out of the RHA budget?
I was thinking the RHA budget that we all have contributed to. And so in support of that, there could be some kind of notification. I'm sure when we submit something in there, you can put it from all of the agencies directly, sort of simplifying it.
Yeah.
We all did individually need to try and do something.
I would really support it. I think, it's a really, really tragic and sad situation. And yeah, she was a housing advocate through and through. So yeah, I think it would be a way to honor her. And, I think we always have to look at precedent and how would that look in the future and all of that. But hopefully this kind of a situation with somebody that was so into the housing circles in LaPlata County.
And I think directly to the Habitat is probably a better option for us because it's within the realm of what we do as well. So I like that.
And I'm glad that they had those two options because
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what it might look like.
So I think there's full agreement on that, it appears. Any ideas on an amount? I mean, the governments are the ones that put in the money. I could throw out a number, but I didn't.
I think we're at 5%.
What's that?
Yeah.
We're at 5%. So.
I don't know what's in the budget that we could allocate towards something like that. Have a budget set. No.
Do we have contingency in the budget?
This isn't a part of the budget currently, but we can take a look and see what we can.
Do we have extra funds outside of the budget that we don't have an allocation for?
I don't think so.
What's the fund balance gonna be?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what the fund balance will be, which is another reason why the technical assistance grant foreshadowing is gonna be good. But if
We can come back to the board and we could, if y'all pass a motion today that a contribution can be made, we can send an email about what amount.
I'm thinking $1,000.
Yeah. So there are governments too.
That would be divided exactly. That was my quick math.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and make that motion, subject to confirmation that we have money in the budget and do that on an email confirmation. So then we will have to come back and vote on it. That's my motion. Have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Eva. And then want to give your City of Durango update.
Yeah, I will be fairly quick. I actually made myself some talking points so that I wouldn't go too long for everything else that we have on our agenda. So one of the things that we're encountering with interest rates and variable comps is that our AMI tables that we've been using are getting completely out of sync. It's happening at the national level with HUD, which is why the Housing and Urban Development Office had such a challenging time to actually release area median income tables to all of the local jurisdictions because they were using the data from the census of 2020, which is also impacting Prop 123 baselines, as we all know, and it's impacting the max affordable resale price because of the interest rate. Conservatively, most of the tables throughout the state of Colorado have been using a 4.5% mortgage interest rate for a 30-year fixed, which has been fine until this year. So council made direction, taking staff's recommendation at last night's meeting Tuesday night's meeting to extend our fair share table amounts for another year. until we can actually come up with new formulas that will make sense for either our county, our region, or locally in the city of Durango specifically. I want to coordinate that through RHA because it may impact the type of resource tools that we're all using when we sit down with developers and talk about what's affordable and start calculating pricing for affordability of units to resell on the market or creating agreements for new sale for deed restriction property. So I think it's a broader discussion that we're going to have to look at because we're going to have varying tables if we don't do something in alignment here. The table that we're using currently is going to keep the 4.5% interest rate so that we consistently don't have any unintended consequences by putting deed restriction units that are already impacted negative. Because that would be an unintended consequence by adopting the new numbers in 2023. So we don't want to have this ripple effect in our community of what we've been doing. So we coordinate with Sarah on a broader topic, maybe down the road, but with council, we sort of caused a pause. We asked for an extension for 2022 because we have active negotiations happening with developers as we speak. And it's impacting how we go after grant money as well. So that was the mechanism that we passed by resolution Tuesday night. And so wanted to inform the RHA of that. It's a proactive approach instead of being reactive and waiting to see what happens.
I see.
Have in place a new affordable housing fee offset policy that will help offset building permit fee, use tax, and possibly water tax if those are applicable, as well as a bonus opportunity for developers to incentivize them to do affordable and workforce housing in our community. That will go live starting after June 20th. So we'll have an application process for that developers can apply for. And the bonus structure would be if you meet or exceed the 16% fair share inclusionary zoning requirement, you'd be eligible for additional bonus opportunities. It's the first of its kind in the state. So we're pretty excited to have that deployed and we'll see how that can channel more units in our community. Housing projects, Anima City Park Overlook Townhomes, that's north over by City Market. The four income qualified units, 3 are in phase 1 is in phase 2. The 6 workforce units are floating between phase 1 and phase 2. That we have 10 deed restricted units total, 50% of that project, they are under contract. The 6 workforce, we're working with college faculty, as well as some other local workforce that are taking advantage of those units. So that's pretty exciting. So it's probably a reminder to me children. We forget them. And so that's really exciting. And so we're navigating some creativeness with the developer, possibly giving credits at closing to help with offset the interest rates because down payment assistance programs cannot directly impact closing costs. So we're getting creative with those to keep those units under contract. The residences at Durango, the Best Western Motel conversion, are anticipating pulling building permits to get under construction starting in July. So an update there. And then we are also working on a project that's very conceptual, city council approved, which is 50 single family homes over by the Maverick gas station by 3 Springs, where the Housing Innovation Division is creatively working to get workforce units in that project. We don't have a final deal yet, so I won't disclose any other details other than that. And the city just recently received an award from DOLA, the Division of Housing with Homes Fund. It's a new tranche of money for the CDBG grant. So their funding just expired. We've had that for 4 years. It was a 3-year grant. They extended it for a year in 2022 because money couldn't get deployed because there were no units to deploy down payment assistance primarily in our area. But we were just awarded $1.8 million. And that's a joint application with the city and Homes Fund. We are the pass-through agency. We do the reporting on that grant in conjunction with Homes Fund. And that is for the region, not just for Durango. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you very much.
I was just gonna say, I did take a look at the budget and we actually do have $1,000 in our budget for miscellaneous, so.
Great, let's spend it.
Consider that one done.
Right.
Okay. So back up to G on Alliance updates, Catalyst Fund update. Mike and Sarah.
Yes, we are through our first round of grants through the Catalyst Fund. So we, the committee voted and decided that 4 of the 5 projects that applied will receive funding. We had $335,000 in asks. but we awarded 181,000. And these are a nice spread. It's in Durango, Bayfield, Ignacio, and Lake County. So this will result in this will result in a little over 200 units in our communities. And it also included some technical assistance as well. So we are providing 36 hours of technical assistance to the 4 projects that received funding. So this will help them with identifying further state grants to navigating some of the pre-development work that they're doing. So we expect those contracts are being signed currently. The grantees have been notified, and we expect to be publicly announcing via press release in a couple of weeks. So, but we had a great round with the committee and with the working group, and we are looking forward to round 2.
And I don't understand.
Information for the seed money. So we are planning on opening up round 2 in July.
That's pretty good, 80%.
Any questions?
How much total money is available?
What's the question?
How much total money is available?
We believe it's gonna be $670,000. So right now we have this grant, we're trying to modify the initial budget from 2 different projects. And if DOLA agrees to the modification of budget, then it'll be 670. If not, it'll be 610. So,
I see.
within that range.
Other questions? Thank you. So Cole Ranch update. Sarah.
Yeah, whole ranch update. So, and I know Marcia may have some information to add to this, but we, pulling up my notes, I'm sorry.
And this is the Forest Service property on 160, which
It is.
homeowners and.
Yes, it's a coal ranch on 160. Basically, we went out there, we met with the Forest Service, the Columbine District Ranger, Nick Glidden, and he kind of briefed us on the United States Forest Service issues, raised this as a potential place for workforce housing. This meeting also included John Whitney from Senator Bennett's office, as well as Commissioner Porter Norton, Julie Constant from CDOT, obviously I was there, and then David Neely from the Forest Service as well. So this is 70 acres. It's a heritage farm site. They want to keep the heritage farm and barn and restore it to become the headquarters there, and then look to create workforce housing there on the site. So I've been working with them to do a feasibility study to see what is possible. Marcia has spoke with, who was the water specialist?
The LaPlata provider, LaPlata Wastewater Authority at Tober.
Yeah, and they intend on getting water out there in the next few years.
I don't know if there's a definition on the year. They would like to go, it depends on the city. There has to be a partnership between LaPlata and the city. I won't pretend to understand all the machinations of that. So he said that it's on their horizon. They would like to continue those conversations.
Where's this at?
Whole Ranch or LaPlata?
Ranch.
You go.
Yeah, it's right past Elmore's Corner. It's there on your right-hand side. There's a huge barn right there, and they have horses and cattle, and then it's just a vacant lot, and then there's that housing development that kind of.
Just before you drop down into the Florida River, just before.
Yeah.
What are the options for sanitation? Is it a district? Is it septic?
We don't know. So that's why we're wanting to do a feasibility study. I mean, this is a long-term project, but this is something that Senator Bennett has put forward in a bill on. This is something that the Forest Service is making a little bit of precedence on in White National. Is that right? White
White
River,
River.
White River.
Yes, in Summit County.
Yeah.
We did this.
Yeah,
It's been 11 years and
Yeah.
it still hasn't been able to get developed.
Yeah.
Because of those complexities of water and sewer.
The
Yeah.
So
nearest
exactly.
sewer is level at Elmhurst Street in the South Durango Sanitation District. So, yeah.
but the Forest Service is basically saying, you know, obviously they need workforce housing. They're, you know, the ranger that's in Telluride right now, they believe that's gonna be the last ranger that can afford to live there, you know, kind of thing. So
Sure. No, it's an opportunity, I think, to certainly, you know, look at those. You just, you know, we want to evaluate other communities that have encountered this. The town of Dillon also is working with the U.S. Forest Service on a parcel of land that they're actively released to an RFP. So there's some communities that we can lean on a little bit to learn some best practices of how they're navigating that. But yeah, the U.S. Forest Service site in the town of Dillon, 50% of that would be reserved for their workforce as a priority.
So that's why we need to have a study to see what's even possible. I mean, 78 acres of flat land seems, you know, very developable, but we don't know from the infrastructure standpoint. They are interested in, you know, first and foremost, housing their workforce, but then the rest of it being restricted to other workforce. So it would be a very complicated project, but just wanted to let you know that those meetings have happened and now we're seeing what the results of a feasibility study could look like for it.
Are you guys putting out an RFP? Is the Forest Service putting out an RFP for the feasibility work?
Trying to avoid that lane because it would be very heavily bureaucratic. But we're exploring options right now of what that could look like and what the cost of it is first and foremost. If we're able to do an abbreviated feasibility study, then it could be significantly less than full. So we're exploring avenues right now. We've explored the potential of the Catalyst Fund. We've explored and now we're kind of exploring the potential of the DOH technical assistance as well. So we're exploring all options to see.
There's a lot of infrastructure issues besides water and sewer, just the churn lane movements required on 160.
There's deceleration.
But if the feds are getting involved and the senators are getting involved, somehow they seem to find money that the private sector cannot. So.
Yeah, which is good. I think that I'm going to send you a fact sheet on a bill that updates something called the Flexible Partnership Act. And Senator Bennett has implemented it. What it does is it makes these kind of deals easier to do. So I'm going to send it to you, Sarah, to send. But yeah, it's long-term. We talked about that. And the one other thing about the CDOT ACDC lane, Excel decel lane, is that a RISE grant has been put in by CDOT to update that level of 160. And so it'd be a perfect time. I mean, if they get that grant and that section of 160, I think pretty much down to the bottom of the hill is going to be done. And right when you turn off where the water dock is and to Dry Creek, actually. So it's going to be a pretty big stretch. And so Julie Constant, the director of our region, CDOT, was at this meeting and it's like, yeah, if we get this grant, we need to move on this and put that in. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thanks for the update. Term tracker update, JJ.
Yeah. So on page 7 of your guys' packet, you guys will see the term tracker as it currently exists. And then the page 8 after that shows it kind of like the log version of it instead of the more instead of just showing the current sitting members of the board. So the goal here is one, just as like as a historical document, I'm trying to go back in records and figure out who was on the board before y'all, but yeah. I know, right? So I might need to sit down with you, Katie, and like jog your memory a little bit just to fill in some gaps here.
Garcia may have been on.
Okay, I will reach out to him as well. But the big thing we're trying to is obviously the member governments set their own terms. The only one who is spelled out in our own bylaws is Pat as the member at large. So, but everything else, so I kind of have a lot of unknown. So I was hoping to put this back out to you guys and see what my, like, if you could track down ideally those original documents. Eva's already been great, but give me some of that stuff. Find out what is the term. So that way we have that record. We know when people's terms are coming up, when there's about to be a hole that we need to fill, and be a little bit more proactive on that instead of reactive.
Each entity sets its own term.
Yeah, that's
You know
correct.
that, okay.
Yes, yeah, so I just need to know.
You're just
what-
wondering what they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Just so we can keep it here and keep it fresh.
And each entity is like, doesn't necessarily have to have a term set. They can't just say to the end of, like for the elected, they can say to the end of the elected terms, but for the staff people, that's a little bit more infinite potentially.
Mine's supposed to be in.
And so it may very well be the case that several of your member governments haven't set terms, in which case that'd still be good for me to know, and then I'd maybe make the suggestion that your councils consider that. That's of course up to your guys' discretion.
So I guess get the information to JJ if you can find it.
Please.
Ours seemed to go back to, because it took me a while to find some of that too. Ours seemed to revert back to the intergovernmental agreement. So I went back to like 2006 and tried to go through those, and none of them had terms,
Yeah.
it seems, in there. So then it was like, well, am I looking for a resolution? Am I looking for when our council seats change? And often they have those meetings. It does seem to appear that ours might be based on like then their elected term seat.
Oh, okay.
Because we didn't really adopt a resolution or anything for liaison boards, which in our municipality is kind of what the RHA is considered. So that's what I could find, because I was wondering that for Gilda Yazzie. I didn't quite know what her term would be now. Because Kim's went to when her seat ended. So I'm just assuming for the sake, mine is no term date right now.
And our bylaws do state that the member governments get to remove their representatives at any time. So if at any point they want to pull one representative and replace another, they're allowed to do that more or less at whim. And so it seems like we've just been kind of operating at, okay, now it's this person, now it's this person without any real thing. So if that's how the member governments want to proceed, that's fine. I'm
You
just
just
trying.
don't want to lose sight of if
Yeah.
somebody's expired or something and then we're
Yeah.
voting on things. And they don't.
Exactly.
For your.
Exactly.
Yeah, it seems to them.
We, the commissioners, allocate our liaisons at the first of every year in January. And so that would probably be my term,
Okay.
is 1 year.
Mhm.
I'll tell you, I'll talk to Chuck about this and see what we do with the staff application.
Mhm.
Like if we just might want to get that on the same schedule.
Yeah, sure.
And by the way, Gilda's name, just so everybody knows, the correct saying is Yazzie,
Yazzie.
not Yazzie. It's Yazzie.
Yazzie, okay.
Yeah. Just want to make sure.
Is she gonna be here today? Do you know?
I saw her yesterday and it seemed like it. Does she have the calendar invite?
Yeah, she sent me an email saying that she would be here.
So maybe something come up.
Earlier
came up.
today. So
Yeah, I saw her yesterday. And assumed she-
Anything else on that topic? Next item, technical assistance updates. Sarah.
Yes, so I forwarded to the directors our award letter from the DOH for the technical assistance grant. We received it. I'm working with a few consultants with the DOH on this grant as it's a two-part. The first is staff time and resources like we discussed. I have asked for a robust scope of work for a 12-month period. Some of those deliverables would include an RHA board retreat this fall with a simple 3-year strategy, development of implementation tools for strategy. This would include best practices, case studies for fund balance. The second is to refresh the workforce housing plan. And the third would be to support standing up a public funding coalition, research, polling, and recommendations. So that is, it's being tailored to our entity currently. And again, this isn't a cash grant, but the services that they're crafting is in the $75,000 to $85,000 range. And then the second one is the handout that you all received. This is the draft agenda in progress. So if you remember, Eva and I were working on implementing kind of what some of the city of Durango's needs were because they had come forward on this grant as well. So we have 2 days, one kind of at a LaPlata County level, and the second day says city of Durango, but we can change that to municipalities because this is for the 3 municipalities within the RHA that, you know, are needing a little more of the technical education options here. So just kind of going over this draft agenda, I want to provide time for the directors to provide feedback. But these are all items that have been identified within our 1-year initiative, our goals that have been articulated, and then other discussions here within these meetings. So everything from regional collaboration to the land use and policy, guidance to setting up a successful ballot initiative, innovative funding sources, state funding opportunities. The more guidance we can get on this from the state, the better. There's just so many things coming down from the state. And then the more focused city one would be groundwork and positioning, planning, land use and policy initiatives, governance, and then funding and finance. So they are doing, when they do these educational series, they are doing more of like 20 to 25 people. We didn't have that hashed out before, but they're a little more smaller and intimate. They can do up to 40 to 50 people. We are looking at space at the fort to host this for 2 days. And it would be from 9:30. Oh, actually, this is 1 to 5 on July 26th. And then the other one says 9 to 12:30, but we can also ask for those times to be changed. So I want to give you all time to provide feedback on what you think, what changes you want made. That's.
It's a water district discussion. Ask Sarah about that. Should we also regarding wastewater treatment as well?
It can be. This, you know what, thank you for bringing that up, Katie, because this has to do with actually with the Bayfield project that we heard about earlier. One of the recommendations I got from one of the consultants was to consider creating a water district for that project so that they would have access, the community would also have more access to state funds around that. And again, that's as much as I know about it. Just enough to be dangerous. So yes, I can definitely ask to include wastewater in there too.
Any other thoughts or comments to the agenda?
Suggest under land use and policy, the available policy tools might be a little too vague.
Yeah.
For this particular setting, if it is going to be 20 to 25 people. We really need to focus on a few of those key policy tools and be able to discuss it, brainstorm. I'm thinking about land use regulations or land use agreements, land leases, and deed restrictions. They are 3 buckets that we are all navigating in various projects. And I think it could be educational for all of us because some may lean towards a land lease model versus a land use agreement versus a deed restriction. And I think, we really need to talk about this because it's a new tool that this community hasn't been using. So I think under land use policy, my suggestion, instead of it just being available policy tools, we specifically hone in on like those 3 kind of.
Okay, land use.
So it would be
land leases,
land leases, it would be land use agreements, and it would be deed restrictions
And land banking.
and land banking.
Yeah, I'd like to know about land banking.
When you refer to a land use agreement, is that like a development agreement?
It's kind of, yes, sort of. It's like it's similar to a restrictive covenant, like a deed
It's a
restriction,
little different.
but we're finding challenges with various lending and underwriting. If it's HUD, if it's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they all 3 have different underwriting criteria that I'm learning on the fly. I feel like most of the time with various projects. And so some of them may be more open to a land use agreement because it can have the restrictive components in it, But when HUD or someone is underwriting it, it doesn't tick a box that instantly says, we can't fund this project because you have this. So I'm finding it's a new tool that's being used, and I don't know enough about it, other than some of these lenders are having underwriting issues if we require them to do such things. And our inclusionary zoning is requiring such things. So I'm encountering some things as we think about a new program.
Sarah, I think this agenda looks really good. One of the things I like everything Eva just said, that, you know, so what I like about that is as Eva has gotten into her work, she has identified, I like learning and technical assistance that's from the ground up. You know, like, what are we experiencing? What's the problem? How can we start to go through it? A couple of comments I immediately have. The water district discussion is a super complex one. And but super important. Water is the key issue everywhere, right? I think before we would put it on here, we would want to think hard about some background work. Because the big question I have in my mind is, who are all the water providers? You know who they are. I know who most of them are. We have a list at the county. What is that collective capacity? How many units could go under LaPlade, for example? How many more units of any type of housing, let alone affordable housing? What about the city? What are their plans? We have La Plata West Water Authority. We have the tribe. So it almost feels to me like the water discussion would be an afternoon of its own someday. And maybe we can just allocate like 10 or 15 minutes to sort of see 20 minutes, what is the lay of the land? Because we had a government to government meeting with the Southern Ute Indian tribe a couple months ago, and this came up in a very positive way. They were saying, how do you guys approve development in the county? And tell us how that works. And, you know, and we realized that discussion immediately becomes really complicated. So I don't say take it off the list, but I'd like to maybe say in parens, like a quick scan, and then in parens, where do we as a community want to go with this? Is it forming a water district is easy. State law, we know, I can show you in our code how you form a special district. It's who's going to form it. Do we need it? Where is it? Sorry, where is it? Are there any plans for anybody to expand beyond what LaPlade and during La Plata West Water? I mean La Plata West Water Authority. So does that make sense, Pat? I mean,
yeah, I think
I'm looking at you because you've been interfacing with water for many years, and it's just a super complex conversation.
Yes, it is. And I think that's quite well taken. It'd be handy to have that list of the different districts in the county.
Okay, it's in our code.
Obviously, I'm very familiar with the tribe's utility, and relatively so to City of Durango because they developed in it, but less so in Bayfield. I really don't know many of the districts other than LaPlade.
And then also to integrate what Katie said, it's a companion wastewater.
Yeah.
So what is out there?
Yeah, what's the capacity?
And does anybody, and that feels to me like a multi-$100,000 study for somebody to figure this out between everybody. Right?
Yes, it's years. I mean, you can even create a water district, but then where are you gonna get the water?
Right, exactly.
I mean, we're in
might be a dry
year
district.
8, basically trying to file on water rights, so.
Yeah.
I think it'd be handy for those that you have knowledge on, you know, what your relative capacities are. So then the folks would generally know. I mean, the tribe's capacity is pretty significant in terms of their utility system, which they serve the city or town of Ignacio. So anyway, I think it'd be good information to have, so people can be informed.
I think what we have is a list. I don't know if anybody, and if there's a list out there, we should just bring it forward. If anybody knows, like, what is the city's capacity now? And then if they did X, what would that capacity be? What is LaPlade's capacity? You know, it would be a really interesting, another half-day workshop of just where are we going to develop? Where are we going to grow? And where's the water and wastewater going to come from?
Ring.
Right.
Well, I think first and foremost is what's today's capacity, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's built and, you know, we're talking about trying to get units on the ground as quickly as we can. Then, you know, it's what we have today to work with. So. Any other thoughts on the agenda, the draft agenda?
Tax options, there's also funding options. So remember, we have that chart that shows all the various funder. So are we just looking at ballot or are we looking at funding options? Because if so, then we go to things like the vendor fee and stuff like that.
I would put the funding options in that I would guess would include the recently passed state legislation on Tabor. Toward allocation towards affordable housing. Now, is that going to the ballot? in
Are you
November?
talking about 1, 2, 3? I'm not talking about 1, 2, 3.
No, this was the one that was taking
HH.
HH.
It's supposed to be November, I thought.
It is, but it's not dedicated to housing.
There was a piece that was going to take some excess Tabor funds and allocate it to affordable housing. There, at least that was working its way through the legislature.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
If anybody, correct me if I'm wrong, that HH came out 3 days before the session.
Okay.
And we like. But if they did allocate something to housing, that'd be great because HH is super complicated.
Well, let's just put funding options. and
Yeah.
Money.
Go for it.
The message we got was it's really entitled, it's basically trying to shore up the school fundings. That's what we heard.
Yeah.
Everything else is very complex, but
And it's decreasing property taxes.
sort of.
So who's attending this?
Yeah.
Are this is an open invitation? Is this developers?
It can be developers. It's definitely the board and any of the your entities like top housing leaders or city council members first and foremost. And then we can kind of see where we are space wise and invite developers and others. But again, we're trying to keep it a little more limited. Initially, they didn't give us a number count. And so we were thinking this could be a broad effort, but really they're doing these sessions for about 20 to 25 people. They could accommodate up to 40 to 50, but that's what it's looking like around the state that they're doing.
So the only reason I ask is that I don't have any issue with the city of Durango focus, but is there any way that there's a focus on, the local governments?
I was
Nashua, Bayfield, and La Plata County, I think there's gonna be differences, but there should be at least that opportunity.
Yeah, and again, we were talking about renaming that one to local governments or municipalities or, because this is supposed to be crafted for the municipalities. It's just that, even the city of Durango, it's
Was able to hear your part.
so, and this is made for what the RHA board needs it for. So
Are you good with calling it local government?
Yeah, I'm good with it. I just think there's gotta be a little more general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sounds good.
Sense.
We're all represented.
Don't leave us out.
No.
Anything else? So those friendly amendments, we have a motion do we need a motion to approve?
Yeah, we need a motion.
Yeah, and also,
I have one other change, I think, based on what Katie said too, is that how to create a 3 to 5 year workforce housing plan for the city, referencing the 3-year, that wasn't just for the city. So I just think not being city of Durango focused.
Take up.
Yeah, because that was our collective plan that the EDA did.
Good catch.
Okay. I must have, so just take out the city.
Well, where it says how to create a 3-year workforce housing plan.
Referencing the 3-year county work.
Okay, so
Yeah.
just take out for the city.
Got it. Right.
Okay.
And I don't know that we need to know how to do it because we have one. Why do we need to even talk about that?
That's actually a good point. We can redirect
This is
that.
what it is.
Yeah, this is like, I'll review it.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
might not understand how tight knit we
Yeah.
are, that isn't
Yeah.
exactly necessary. Okay, I will get that removed and use that time for something else.
And just, Mr. Chair, just to state for the record and for anyone who might be on Zoom, the document the board has been working on right now is not included in the official board packet because there was no decision to be made here. This is just a draft and.
You got it to us yesterday. So
Yeah, also that.
we would make sure
Yeah,
that
so
you
this
all
was-
have
this was-
eyes on it.
This was just brainstorming and feedback gathering for
Yes,
us.
and they know that I'm gathering feedback from the directors. I'm gonna come back to them, and revise as you all go through.
And we will make sure to give the board the official agenda once that's made official.
Anything else on this? Okay, next item is tax task force. Can't say that very.
Yeah, the tax task force. So this is something that we've had some discussions around of a possible tax and passage and what it could look like. And Marcia has brought up that we need to do research on it and how it could operate. So this is something in the technical assistance grant. I've been very clear that we could use as much assistance as possible. So we, at the Alliance, we've been engaging stakeholders around the community on a potential tax and what it could look like, business association leaders, other government officials. And I know that from the feedback in our meetings, it's been stated that the city of Durango would be the most likely candidate for a workforce housing tax. So I wanted to keep you all aware that this is included in the technical assistance. We'll hear it in this education series, and we'll also receive some tools and resources through the larger technical assistance grant. But in the meantime, the Alliance is putting together a task force of folks and is already starting to do some of the groundwork on that. In the city of Durango, there is some polling already around that we can utilize as well. So we're starting to pull those resources together and want to be keep well informed.
So why just Durango? Would it be worth doing a little more broader? I understand La Plata County, you're gonna have some. I understand the county and the municipality, but I don't know how Ignacio feels, but I think that some polling done in Bayfield isn't gonna hurt either. I think there's a lot of need for, just our school district trying to hire teachers, in fact, just the town trying to hire people. So that would be, I mean, we're considering a lodging tax. So, any survey that can be done on a broader scale would be helpful to us.
That's great. No, that is included in the scope for the technical assistance piece, that it would be countywide or in each municipality, but it is included that would be a part of it. So I will make that note as well.
We also, just in all transparency, are looking at, and this is controversial, like everything that relates to taxes. Counties can reallocate lodgers taxes. And we've been very transparent that bill passed in 22. And it was House Bill 1127, I think, 5727. And what it allows us to do is to say, the lodgers taxes that are collected in the unincorporated area, not in the municipalities or the city, we can reallocate up to 10%, but it has to go to ballot. And we reallocate the money to effects of tourism. So workforce housing, transit, childcare, trailheads, those kinds of things. So we discussed it at our retreat. The commissioners had a retreat about 6 weeks ago, I think, somewhere on there. And we're interested in having the conversations. I see Waylon from Visit Durango is on here. So our money is allocated by a lodgers tax panel, and they do 100% of it to Visit Durango, which markets hopefully the whole county. So that's, we want to work with Visit Durango in terms of, we don't want to take all their money. That would be really not smart, given how much sales tax comprises our budget for sure. But we want to look at that opportunity. So just to be transparent with everybody, if you're looking at a 24 ballot, it could have a reallocation of lodgers tax. It may have a new lodgers tax in Bayfield, and then anything else that might come up countywide. And don't forget, the library probably is going to go, the Durango Library may be on that ballot too.
And at the housing summit that I went to in April, that Lisa heads up that we discussed, they had a Visit Estes Park case study, because that's what they did. Visit Estes Park helped lead a reallocation of the lodger's tax and an expansion of it too. So they basically ended up doubling it, and it was for workforce housing and it was for childcare. So we're seeing other communities have done this, and there's a lot of best practices around it. Denison, there's a few others. And so some of the housing experts that are being engaged through the technical assistance grant will be able to provide us with those case studies as well. And I spoke with a funder today, a foundation who is interested in helping sponsor this as well.
And it is different. I think ours is capped.
Right. All right.
It's capped in the county.
Right.
Whereas municipalities, I don't think have that same cap. So anyway, but I think it's gonna be a really interesting, great conversation. I do think, just in all transparency, it's, you know, anytime you're taking money from one and allocating to another, that's a hard conversation to have. So, and we don't want tourism to go away. That's not our goal at all. It's just there are impacts, and the workforce housing is one of the biggest.
Anything else on that topic? Good. So we're on to 2023 goals tracking. Sarah.
Yes, our goals tracking, included in here, kind of any updates on it. There's a few that I can start with at the top in terms of centralizing area housing information and resources. You know, we are still working on the website. CIRSA has gotten back to us. We now have project managers assigned and a work order created. We have the bracket and we have content created. They say that it takes about 6 weeks at most for after the engagement for that website to be completed. So we are very, very hopeful that we will have some results to show in July, August for this website. And we've begun some work on actually getting an email too for the website. That way we can, these things will be set up for the RHA for years to come. But we are engaged, so we've got progress there. And then let's see, yes. Well, I added in here about the since the tax task force and the technical assistance grant is started. I've gone ahead and started activating that, as we do believe that these will be identified and worked through by the end of this year. We've also included in there, I think those are the biggest updates. Oh, yes. So the land use best practices that came into this, yes, thank you. The land use best practices that is included in here, that was in some of our conversations around the technical assistance grant that was brought up. So we wanted to provide that as a resource for all the directors. And then this brings up the big one that's part of this goal tracker, which is, as you may or may not know, the Alliance has an internship program. And we have been in conversations with Region 9 on how we could possibly craft an internship that would best support the RHA, because there is a need for some land use policy work. So in our goals, we have identified, and Katie was instrumental in crafting this, in uniting the regional approach to workforce housing policy and supporting Project Expedition, coordinating with public partner housing resources to expedite opportunities through land use and permitting, policy changes process, and then there's a number of those potential policy changes, but it's also supporting the review and refinement of land use code, building code in the county and municipality levels. So one of the thoughts we had for a potential intern for the RHA is that they could engage with all 4 of the government entities on their land use best practices, and then also engage with developers and help to create sort of a Cliff's Notes version, if you will, on for a developer, if they were coming into your area, what some of those high level steps would look like to help kind of keep them to help keep the process smoother. So this was something we identified as a potential for this role. We also we also talked about the dashboard and inventorying all of our projects, current, upcoming, and completed. So we wanted to offer this as a potential resource for the RHA that we could facilitate an intern in the fall focused on this. The deliverable would hopefully be a document or a report that helps everybody navigate a little more cleanly how to get through. Project. This could also be wrapped, especially in considerations of Prop 123 and opting in and having those the expedited projects component of that. Thought this could be an answer to this as well.
I do have one request. Is there a way to put this on maybe 4 pages and make it so
Make it
my
larger.
eyes can read it?
Yeah, no problem.
I know it's difficult because it's more blank there. So
I will see what I can do.
thank you. Okay, so we're on the decision items. The first one is resolution 2023-04, posting designation.
Yeah, thank you. So if you guys flip to, I believe this page, it's 21 of your packet. There you'll see a memo from the RHA, the RHA's lawyer, David Lieberman. It's not spelled that way, and that's very. It's very
Okay, JJ.
Everyone should be as easy to spell as mine. But so, as per the request of the board at the last meeting, I did have, Mr. Lieberman weigh in on this issue, on this resolution. So the resolution, which is on page 24, essentially in a nutshell, Mr. Lieberman's memo has some highlighted places about why this is necessary, but we are required as a public entity to have a designated location where all of our meeting notices will go up. And it's required to be determined at the first meeting of the year. So we're a little bit late to the game on that one. But so me and Mr. Lieberman drafted this resolution, and I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of it. It would designate our website as the official hosting place. And then it would also designate a physical backup location in the event of a power outage. So that's just a general background there, and happy to answer any questions on it.
Chair, I would move we approve resolution number 2023-04. Resolution of the Regional Housing Alliance of La Plata County to designate certain public places for the posting of all meeting notices pursuant to the open meetings law, CRS 24-6402.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passing unanimously. Okay. Letter of support approval, Tree Farm Village.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Note for the record that Marcia and Clark both left for recusal purposes. So this is a little bit out of order in the package. We need quorum.
We have a
1,
couple
2,
of those
3,
online, so.
4, 5. We do have a quorum.
Mark.
Oh,
Mark's
not
here.
Nicole, that's right.
Yeah, Nicole's not.
It's for.
So you need City of Durango.
Yeah.
Quorum would be determined as a majority of directors present, so then recuse.
Yes.
So,
Okay, yeah.
I don't believe so. So we can't
Kevin
take
Hall
action
was here, was that?
as a board.
Is Kevin, yeah, Kevin,
Kevin-
at some point,
Kevin or
Kevin hopped
Eva.
off. Yeah, I know he was, yeah.
We can't take action. Okay,
So earlier, we talked about the fact that they could send that out to each entity and we could make a decision on our own. We have any issue with that? And excluding, I guess, the elected official in Ignacio and the county.
Right.
But is Chuck the person?
It's now Kevin Hall.
Kevin is.
Yeah. I'll send it to Eva and Kevin. Gilda.
And the two of us.
Me, and then just ask for a yes or no.
Yes or no, so treat it like the 24-hour period.
Yes.
Okay, I think it's a good suggestion.
Okay.
Mark, do you have any issue with that?
No, I think that, sorry.
There,
Thanks, Katie, for.
having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, Mark, it seems like you got a bad connection. You're frozen on our end.
I
In the
think
shadow.
It sounded like he was about to answer the information.
Is that better without my? Is that better with the video on?
I'm sorry, Mark, I still
Yeah,
can't
I just
understand.
sent him an email.
Yes, is that better?
We'll send you an email, Mark, and you can respond.
So then, yeah, we will.
Okay, I'm in favor.
You're okay.
Yeah, staff will go ahead and do that, and then, so the process is that we send it out, and then each director has 24 hours to respond in the negative.
Correct.
Is
Correct.
also, okay.
Okay. So JJ will send that out to the
Yeah.
directors. It's all be out of pocket.
And then, should I just not include the
Yes.
two recused parties? All right.
Correct. Okay, so next item is the grant matrix. Have there been any significant changes?
The biggest, I think, Eva already reported on the update from Durango. So that was included. Bayfield, do you want me to speak to or you want to? Speak to?
Yeah, we do have, Department of Housing is supporting 2 million, not the 2.6 that we asked for. And then, we'll be meeting with the State Housing Board via Zoom on June 13th. So you're positive. I'll send them a text.
And as I already kind of reported to the board, the RHA updates for the DOH Technical Assistance Grant. On that second tab, I know it's very small in print, but on that second tab, we've been trying to add any opportunities that we know about, including strong communities. So I did attend that webinar and I noticed a couple other folks were there too. Nicole was there, Eva, and so I think everybody is keeping an eye on this. I did want to bring this up because this is a city and county specific application, but it is for infrastructure and it's going to be opening up in July. Applications are going to open up. So this is going to be well received for those of us who need infrastructure, right? But one of the things that I did ask specifically about that Bayfield project, because I know that is a $500,000 irrigation ditch change, and they did feel like that would be a strong candidate for that. So we would like to work with the county or the city on a potential application through strong communities for that. It might be of interest to the county as a match even, because there is a match requirement for these grants.
Hey, Sarah, I have a quick question on that.
Yes.
Do you know if a jurisdiction can have more than one application for strong communities? I only got the tail end of the webinar and we would like to apply as well for the gap. We asked for 2.6 million for transformational and they're supporting 2 million. So we have a gap that we're interested in applying. So I just was curious if you heard any of that in the webinar.
In terms of applying for multiple projects then,
Yeah, for one community.
I know that they had said at the beginning that it was possible to apply for multiple projects, but I'm sure, you know, entities will have their preference projects, of course, so that is something we'll have to kind of keep in mind. As more information is released on this, Nicole will definitely stay in touch to see what the town of Bayfield's priorities are and for what a lot of counties' capacity would be for such a thing. And then we can kind of help determine where we can best allocate resources.
Great, thank you.
What is, and remind me of the deadline, I'm not reading this font, but it's 2-3 points.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, it's okay.
I had it on my computer at work.
Yeah, it opens in June. I believe it's December is the
I
deadline.
have them, Sarah.
Okay, you do? What is it?
So the letter of interest is due at the end of June to mid-August. They open at the end of June and you have till mid-August to submit your letter of interest. And then the applications, they're looking at either a December or January deadline. And then they want to award, they want to know what they're awarding by the end of January.
By when?
End of January.
That's great. Yeah, and there are several other grants associated with it, like the Energy Impact Fund that Nicole was referencing. So there's, and then there is a transportation component too. So it's multi-tiered.
Any other? Okay, hearing none. Prop 123 update, Sarah, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, Kim and I talked about that prior because I know she's been kind of Gary Faye's expert. But we, Shaq has sent out on the baseline and how to best navigate that with MLS data. So he's worked on creating buckets of data for each entity here. So if you have not received that, I'm happy to forward that along. I do believe most everyone is on that email distribution. Your housing manager is. And then outside of that July 14th, has everybody received the notice of that meeting that's coming up here in Durango with CHAPA and DOLA for July 14th? It came in from Housing Colorado, but some folks had it go to their spam, so I can re-forward that email as well.
July 14th.
Yes, you could email that, Sarah, because I don't have it either.
You didn't get it, Nicole?
No.
Okay. I will go ahead and resend this to the directors and I'll include you, Nicole.
So on.
Oh, July 13th.
13th and 14th.
I just have July 13th on this one. So this is the announcement of the statewide outreach event series.
I only have the 13th on my calendar.
Same.
13th only.
So is it just the 13th?
It's just the 13th only. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And is that taking the place of our regular board meeting? Yeah.
Hope so.
That's what I recall after the discussion. Right, anything else on 123? Okay. This member umbrella policy update, we can probably take this off of the agenda. And I think that's going to tie in more with the land use policy discussions that will be going through the workshop. So I think that's probably a better discussion point. So that brings us to member updates, Town of Ignacio.
Welcome. Yeah, well, if you guys want to see some road construction, come to Ignacio. Talk about housing, but it's kind of impactful. You know, we're going to get a new blacktop on 172. Town of Ignacio has partnered with local residents that tie their sewer into Goddard. And so they're working with them to reduce the cost of replacing that now. It's quite nice to have speed bumps in Goddard right now. So they're reverse speed bumps are more like pets. Other than that, there's probably been no change. I don't know if you guys knew Mark is now the town manager. He's no longer interim.
Oh, okay.
Yay.
Congrats there.
Just took it on.
Yeah. First thing he did is went to Mexico for a week. That's all I got. Mark, you got anything?
I don't. My audio was real bad earlier, so I doubt I'm gonna come across real clearly. I think you covered everything.
I'll be really quick. CDOT's having an open house tonight from 5 to 6 on a parcel of property right at 3 Springs Boulevard and 160. And I was planning to attend, but I have another commitment that came up on me. But I was curious about their needs for workforce housing. Utilities are right there. Could be easily annexed to the city as there's contiguity. And again, water and sewer are right there too. So it seemed to me that that might be an opportunity, if not for CDOT, but maybe for local workforce housing. It's a good piece of property. I don't know if anybody had planned to attend or knew about this, but
They've been publicizing it.
Yeah.
Pretty regularly.
Yeah, I get their updates, and I really wanted to attend that and find out. Yeah. So, okay, that's all I have. Let's see, Town of Bayfield.
So Mustang Crossing Phase 1, they got approval to start. So they are moving ahead, and we have congressional funding. Over and Hickenlooper both said they would approve it or support it. Bennett, we haven't heard from his office, so that's for the light at East Bayfield. We have, it's great to have Brad here to talk about their project that is moving forward. There's homes being built on Clover and Orchard subdivision. Looks like they're almost done. We've got sidewalks going in. We've got East Mill Street that we're almost done with the engineering on. We have a new sewer extension, so everybody's running every which direction.
Plata County.
Yeah, so my only updates are, I think you all know about West Side, that is in the grant tracker. Thank you. We potentially have a new planning director. Last night there was Lynn Hyde. And last night, I know you met her yesterday afternoon and other people met her last evening. And so I'm not on the hiring committee. That's a county manager role, but if I hope that it goes through. And she, there's 4 new people that work in our planning department. We've known that there needs to be both culture change and more staffing. And so with potentially 5 people coming on board, I think it's going to be, we're going to now finally have the capacity to be looking at our own code. So that is going to be first on the list in terms of affordable housing. We're not getting a new code, but in terms of really scrubbing it and say, what you put in your packet here today is going to be really helpful to us about land use, because we can just give that to the new director if indeed she comes on board and say, let's look at our own code and let's determine what of these tools we might want to integrate or put as an option or whatever. So that's a long-term conversation. Just to let you know, and I know we could get into all kinds of policy debates, whether this was a good idea or not, but there was a right of first refusal bill that was vetoed by the governor. So, I won't weigh in because we're not having a policy discussion, but just to let everybody know on the policy level that was
for multifamily. That was for multifamily sales.
Multifamily, yeah. The bummer is that when you have a LIHTC project that has gone through and it reverts back, so again, we can probably have all kinds of interesting ideas on that, but it was vetoed, I think, yesterday.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
Welcome, Gilda.
We will vote on the letter of recommendation now.
We ended for it. Sorry, there's no easy way to say it.
Really? Then I got your email that said
There, yeah.
You said like
apologize for we- Yeah,
Yeah, well, there was a confusion.
yeah.
So it wasn't you.
Yeah, no, that probably wasn't you. The Outlook invite has been acting wonky and I thought I had it fixed, evidently not, so. So apologies for that.
So I'd still like to send it out, so you have time.
Catch you up.
So we literally have just wrapped up.
We're just about to adjourn. Did, email come?
She did.
Yes,
She did.
she had to leave early to cover kids. So. Anyhow, 2 to 4 is the real time, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Maybe a favor. Yeah. Come back. Last month.